Alright y'all, today we're going to look at what we've kind of already talked about with our triangle equations, and we're going to see what happens when you have more than one variable, like just x, if it says 2x or 4x or 5x or whatever it looks like, so we can help that out, okay? So let's just kind of review first of all about talking about practicing combining like terms. When you're putting things together, you can only add other things that are like one another. For example, if you have 3 x's, if you stop and think about that, if I have 3 x's, I can't physically take away 8 positives because I don't know what those x's are worth. So what we've done before, maybe in 6th grade, we've kind of drew this out. So if I have 3 x's and then I have 8 negatives, I can put the x's on one side, and then adding a negative is the same thing, subtracting a positive is the same thing as adding a negative. So I can have 8 negatives over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then if I add one more x, well then I'm going to put the x with the other x's. And then if I have 11 positives, well again I can't add 11 positives to these x's because we don't know what those x's are worth. So I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I purposely put one positive next to each negative because what happens is we have 0 pairs and they cancel out, and what we see now is over here, what we actually physically see when we draw that is we have 1, 2, 3, 4 x's. We're going to put those together because one x and a negative x would make a 0 pair, but we had no negative x's. And then after these 0 pairs, we have 4 positives. So why this is going to help us out is if we had some angle measurements that we're going to plug this in or substitute with our equation, instead of having to subtract the 11 and then add the 8 and then subtract the x and subtract another 3 x's, if we condense this down by combining like terms, it's going to make it a little bit easier. So this is why we have the 3 x's highlighted with these other x's. So 3x plus x is 4x. If you need to draw the picture to help you out, do that. What I like to do too is I circle my integers, so a negative 8 combined with a positive 11. Remember, when the signs are opposite, we're going to subtract. Well, it looks like I made a mistake there. It wasn't positive 4, it was positive 3. I'm glad I looked at that math as well as my picture, so let's change that out. Remember, when the signs are opposite, you subtract and you take the sign of who there are more of. There's more positives, okay? So without drawing a picture, let's prove this one. If I have 1x, because if there's no number in front, that coefficient is just 1, combined with 5 x's, that means I have 6x. Then I have a negative 9 combined with a positive 12. So when my signs are opposite, we're going to subtract. So 9, 10, 11, 12. And there are more positives. So this condenses down to 6x plus 3. So by combining like terms, this is going to make it a little bit easier once we start down here and solve the equations. Again, if it helps you to draw the picture over here, you could do that. But that's just like letting you know what we're going to do. Okay? So I'm going to do these first 2 problems with you, and then you're going to try the next one on your own. So let's just start from the beginning. We know that the 3 angles in a triangle add up to be 180 degrees. Okay? So let's see what we've got. We need to fill in the blank of the numbers that are given. So we have an x, we have 3 x's, and we have 80. So that's the numbers or variables that we're going to put there. I like to draw a line down the middle to just kind of help me out. And then what I like to do, just to kind of help organize my information, is I like to box my variables, and I like to circle just my numbers. Okay? So if I have 1x combined with another 3x, I have 4 x's. We can't add that to the integer because we don't know what the x's are worth. So again, this is just a helpful tool for me to use in strategy of if I box, I can only put the other boxes with the other boxes and the circles with the other circles. So if that helps you to do that, go ahead and do that. So 4x plus 80 is equal to 180 because, again, we have no other integers on this side. So then, in case you forgot, we're going to get this x by itself. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of that positive 80. So the opposite of positive 80, or adding 80, is subtracting 80. So that cancels out. That gets you 4x on the left-hand side. And 180 minus 80 is going to be 100. So 4 x's are sharing 100, So the opposite of multiply by 4 is divide by 4. So that cancels out. So x is going to be, well, think about money, 100 cents equal to 4 groups, that's 25 cents. You can do the long division as well, okay? Now, what you should always do anytime you're solving an equation is substitute that number in to make sure it makes sense. So 25 is what we get for x. So what you could do is say that's 25 degrees. 3x, so 3 groups of 25, because 3 times x, or 3 times 25. So that means that this angle is worth 75 degrees. So if 25 plus 80 plus 75 equals 180, you know that you're correct, that x could be 25. So I'm going to check that over here. 25 plus 80 plus 75. 5 plus 0 plus 5 is 10. 7 plus 8 is 15. 16, 17, 18. Yep, it checks out. So that is the only number that we could use for x. Okay. Here again, if we did not combine like terms, what you would have done is subtract 80, and then you would have been left with these x's over here and go, well, what am I going to divide by? Am I going to divide by 3 or 1? And we're not dividing by 3 or 1 because we need to put those x's together to see we're truly dividing by that 4. Okay, let's try another one together, and then you can pause the video and try this one on your own and check with your teacher to see if you get it correct. Alright, so first I need to fill out my angles. So I have 30 degrees plus 2x minus 5, and that's the whole angle, so I have to put that whole amount in there. And then 85 is equal to 180. So we're going to use this little sentence stem like we used in our previous lesson. So blank plus blank plus blank equals 180 degrees. I'm going to draw my line down to say what I do to one side of the equation I do to the other. And now I'm going to use my strategy to help me out. I can't have 30 and add 2 x's to it because they're not like each other. Okay? So I like to box again my variables and just circle my integers. But what you need to do, if you haven't noticed, is you need to box the sign that's in front of this plus 2x. That means it's a positive 2x. I have no other x's on this side, so now I'm going to go ahead and look at my integers. I can combine this positive 30 not just with a 5, but it's really a negative 5. So that's where it's really important that you box or circle or whatever you're doing to make sure you look at it. Because remember, this is like 30 minus 5, or 30 combined with 5 negatives. Then we also have this 85. So the 2x, I can't combine anything with, so I'm just going to bring that down. Well, again, think about your integer rules that we've talked about already. 30 minus 5, I could do. 30 minus 5 is 25. Then, so 30 minus 5 is 25. Remember, subtracting is just adding the opposite. So if you rewrote this to 3 plus negative 5, you'd get 25 as well. Then we're going to add 85 to it. So you should get 110. Okay? So what this does by combining like terms is instead of saying, okay, subtract this 30, add the 5 to both sides, subtract 85, you condense that down to where you're only adding the subtracting the number one time, just making it a little bit easier for you to work out. So we want these two x's by itself, so we need to get rid of plus 110 with its inverse operation, which is subtraction. So subtracting 110, that gets you 2x over here. 0 minus 0 is 0. 8 minus 1 is 7. 1 minus 1 is nothing. So we have two x's sharing 70, but that's not how much one x is worth. That's how much two x's are worth. So a number in front of the variable means multiply. So we need to do the opposite of multiply, which is divide. And if we do our long division, half of 70, or 70 divided by 2, we're going to get 35. Here again, you can use substitution to double check. 2 times 35 minus 5. We looked at that. 2 times the group, or times 35 minus 5. I'm just showing my work down here. 2 times 35, well look, 35 times 2 is 70. 70 minus 5, so order of operations, we multiply first. 70 minus 5 is 65, so that really means that this angle is 65 degrees. So 30 plus 65 plus 85. 10. So 8 plus 6 is 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So it checks out. Okay? So always important to check your work so you can make sure that you know that your answer is right. Okay, so try this last one on your own. We have 47 degrees, 2x minus 11, and an x. So combine like terms after you've filled in your blanks, and double check with your teacher and see what you get, if you get it correct. All right, let's do 2 more together. Then you'll have 1 more practice on here before your assignment. So just in case we forgot, isosceles triangles means 2 congruent sides and 2 congruent angles. And the angles that are congruent are called base angles. The angles that are congruent are going to be those angles across from those little dashes. Those little dashes are showing congruency, meaning they're equal. Okay, so here again, across from here, you can see just like that. So the first thing I would do in isosceles triangle is I like to draw my arrows across from those dashes. Don't worry about that phone ring. We're going to keep going. And then we're going to put our letter X right here. Okay? Because we need to know what that angle represents so that we can fill in our blanks. Okay? So I'm going to put X plus X, those are my base angles, plus 70 is equal to 180. Again, we're going to combine like terms. So 1x plus another x is 2x. Then I have the positive 70, so I'll just bring that down, and equal to 180. Okay, want those x's by itself, so the opposite of positive 70 is 70 negatives, or the opposite of adding 70 is subtracting 70, however you want to think about that mathematically. And then we have 2 x's over here. 0 minus 0 is 0. 8 minus 7 is 1. 1 minus nothing is 1. So if this were multiple choice, I would predict that 110 would be a trick answer. But it's not what 1x is worth, it's what 2x's are worth. So we need to do the opposite of multiply by 2, which is divide. Make sure that x is worth 110 divided by 2. So check your math. X should be 55 degrees. Okay, so if we said 55 plus 55 plus 70, you're going to get the sum of 180. So always go back and double check your work. All right, let's try 1 more together. Again, it doesn't matter if your variable is x or y. It doesn't really matter. But let's go ahead and see. Let's do 1 more together over here, and then try this one on your own. And again, check with your teacher to see if you're correct. So the first thing we want to do with isosceles triangle is identify your base angles, because base angles are congruent, and those base angles are opposite those congruent side lengths. So if this is 60, then over here is also 60 degrees. So now we can fill in the blanks. So 60 plus x plus 50. And again, it doesn't matter how you write this. You could have written x plus 50 plus 60 plus 60, or 60 plus x plus 50 plus 60, because when we add, it doesn't matter the order, we're going to get the same sum. Okay, that's called commutative property. If we multiply or add, it doesn't matter in the order, because we get the same thing. For example, 3 plus 10 is 13. That's the same as 10 plus 3 is 13. So we can change that order around. All right, let's go ahead and see. So I actually see my integer first, so I'm going to do my circles for my integers, and I only see this 1x. So it doesn't matter here again if you put the x's first or your numbers, but it's a little easier if you put the x's or your variable first, just so that way you can get rid of the integer by either adding or subtracting. Okay? Remember, your whole goal when we're solving equations like this is to get that variable by itself till we get one value of x or y or whatever letter they gave us. So now we're going to combine our numbers. We have 60, 60, and 50, so that's all 0. 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 5 is 17. And then we got 180 on this side. Okay, so x was what we want by itself, so the opposite of positive 170. Subtract 170. And we get 0 minus 0 is 0, 8 minus 7 is 1, 1 minus 1 is nothing. So we're getting the value of x is 10. And if you take that 10 and substitute that back up here, 10 plus 50 is 60. 60 plus 60 plus 60, or 60 times 3 is going to be 180. Okay? So again, take your time on these. Make sure you're showing your work. Combining like terms isn't too bad. It actually helps you so you don't have to do multi steps. So on this one, we didn't have to do subtract 50, subtract 60, and subtract 60 again. We subtracted that number one time once we combine those like terms. So try this one out, see what you get, check with your teacher, and good luck on your assignment.